Welcome to Withdraw Consent. My name is Victor. He's Jack. So Jack, we've talked about World War II, like how it began, and we're always taught in high school how Hitler was a warmonger and all that, and it seems you've able to disprove that in my mind. So now what about the accusations that he was like the first to bomb cities and all that? I feel like that still kind of makes him the bad guy.
Okay, right. Because if you bomb cities, you're a terrible person.
Right.
Right? Because you're civilians.
Yeah.
Now, if you were to bomb a factory within a city, like a war factory, you know what I mean? Like target it. Okay. So when I was researching this, I got to tell you, I Googled every which way you could do it.
Okay.
Why did Germany start bombing cities first? Why did England start bombing? Like, I'm leading it, you know?
Yeah.
And basically, all you get's a bunch of trash. Okay?
Okay.
So one of the leading lies that they tell you is they say, like, if I Google, did England or Germany or England, I do it both ways, start bombing cities first, they'll say, Germany started first by bombing Polish cities. No, that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. So let's talk about Poland, because if you Google it and you're trying to research like, these guys are lying, it's going to come up with Poland, so let's talk about that. 1939, September 1st, the war starts. Okay. We've got another video, I'll link in the description if you want to get more into that. But for whatever reason the war starts, you can see the reason there. And this is not going to last long in Poland, right?
Right.
Because remember, they were defending the free city of Danzig.
Right.
And then Hitler said, I'll just go for Warsaw, right? So the siege of Warsaw basically started on the first day of war, even though the troops weren't there.
Wow.
So they flew all the way over there to aerial bombard the defenses and stuff, right? So that was on the 1st of September, 1939. Then the ground fighting at Warsaw for the siege of Warsaw began on the 8th of September. So it took them 7-8 days to get there, you know? Mm-hmm. But the entire time, their defenses are getting pounded from the air, you know? And then the Warsaw, the defense is going to surrender on the 28th of September, the same month, right? Now, you could be like, whoa, he was bombing Warsaw. That's terrible, okay? Let me tell you about another siege in World War II and how terrible a siege could be, okay?
Okay.
The siege of Leningrad. Okay. If you're familiar, Enemy at the Gate, terrific movie, sniper movie, remember?
Yeah.
Take place in Leningrad. I'm sorry, Stalingrad.
Stalingrad.
No, it's Leningrad.
But isn't that the one that changes names, or no? I thought there's a city up there that they change the names depending.
Yeah, well, Leningrad is now St. Petersburg, but I am talking about Leningrad. Stalingrad is where the Nazis were defeated at.
Oh, okay.
So the siege of Leningrad began on September 8th, 1941, right? The Soviets opened a narrow land bridge on January 18th, 1943, and the siege will end January 27th, 1944, 872 days after it started. Wow. The Germans never got Leningrad, and the Soviets never surrendered it. So that's how bad a siege can go. Terrible for both sides, mostly for the people inside, honestly, because they were starving, you know? And you can surrender if you're starving, or you can stick it out, and you know what I mean? But what I'm saying is you want the siege to go quickly. Okay. Aerial bombardment is necessary. So when we're comparing things like mass incendiary bombs on English and British cities, which did go back and forth, Poland's not the topic. It's a different thing. It's the siege of a city with troops approaching it and trying to capture it.
But the civilians weren't targeted in September of 39. It was all military targets?
I can't say 100%.
Okay.
There's not definitive proof either way. There's not even an accusation that civilians were targeted. It's just unclear. But what I'm saying is when you're like, hey, I'm not even going to send troops. I'm just going to send bombers over, you know? Now it's a different thing. Are you targeting military bases? Or are you targeting civilians? So what we really want to get to is England and Britain, Britain and Germany, who bombed cities first, right?
Like actually targeting civilians.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so basically, I read The Second Great War by Winston Churchill. So I was always under the assumption that the Germans started bombing cities first, right?
Yeah.
I read Winston Churchill. He told me he wouldn't lie to me, right?
Of course not.
Okay. Then I saw this speech. Okay. This speech is from September 4th, 1940. Let me double check.
So a year later. Okay.
Yeah. And in the speech, Hitler said, I'm going to read you parts of the speech, but he's saying, we've let them bomb us for so long. Now we're going to finally start bombing their cities. And I'm looking at this video and I'm like, the crowds are cheering. And I'm like, why are you cheering? You guys have been bombing for a long time, right? Right? And then I start Googling the dates. They had not been bombing them for so long.
Interesting.
So now I'm gonna put this Wikipedia article up on the screen, and it's under aerial bombardments. And basically, if you go down to World War II, I'm going to put the part from World War II, and it says, Germany began aerial bombing of British cities immediately after the British declaration of war on Germany in September 1939. While the British bombing raids against Germany were on the night of 15th, 16th May 1940. So normally they won't do this. This is just an outright lie, okay? No, normally they just obfuscate, distract, it's Poland. Caught them lying. Screen captured the whole Wikipedia, because if anybody points this out to them, they're just going to change it.
Yeah.
It's going to be on our website when it's finished, but I got it from actually yesterday's date. I put it on the website. And so in order for this to be true, Germany began aerial bombing of British cities immediately after the British declaration of war on Germany in September 1939. So you're saying they marched into Poland and they're sending bombers to Britain, right? Poland falls by the end of September, right? Then you have a 9-month period called the Phony War, right?
Yeah.
In which there was no fighting directly. There was basically the Denmark thing, the Norway thing. And the next would be the invasion of France. So you're going to have to assume that during this Phony War, they're bombing cities. Britain's not doing anything at all because it's a phony war. They're not fighting, right? Then they're attacking France with everything they got, but they're sending bombers to Britain. They're sending bombers. You know what I mean? And then they stop and say, okay, we want peace with Britain. We want peace with Britain. During that, they're sending bombers. It's just nonsense. It's an absolute lie. Okay? So when you get down to it, if you want to know the truth of what happened, Britain began bombing on the 15th, 16th May, 1940. Right? And then Hitler gave them months of bombing the cities. And he didn't bomb them until September 7th, 1940.
So from May to September, Germany was getting bombed, but...
May 15th to September 7th, they weren't bombing cities. And then they eventually... Okay, so basically, we got to talk about the Battle of Britain. Okay. So the Battle of Britain was after the fall of France, and it was Hitler's attack on Britain in an attempt to incapacitate them.
Okay.
They had kind of a fake plan. It was called Operation Sea Lion, and they were pretending like they were going to do a channel invasion. And so they staged troops and made manuals about Operation Sea Lion to let them fall into the spies' hands so that the British would think that there was going to be an invasion, but they weren't really planning one. They were just making it look like it. Anyways, so what happened in the Battle of Britain? Now there's two different stories here. One is going to be the British story, and one's going to be the German history. Okay. So the British story is that on July 10th, they're both going to start on the same day. July 10th, 1940, the Battle of Britain began, which ended Halloween, October 31st, 1940, right? And then that's the Battle of Britain, they say. Okay. Then they say the Blitz happened from September 7th, 1940. Remember when Germany started bombing cities, to May 11th, 1941.
Okay.
Right? So they're separating the two periods, even though they overlap, and they're saying one is the Battle of Britain, one is the Blitz, where they came and bombed our cities, right? Germany just says it's just the Battle of Britain from the beginning period to the end period. It's just the Battle of Britain. Now, the difference between the Battle of Britain in the English perspective and the Blitz is that the Battle of Britain was it was a failure, right? But it was a 3-pronged attack that took 3 different strategies that Winston Churchill in his book said if they had followed any one of these strategies to the end, they would have defeated us.
Oh, okay.
The first strategy was attacking the Air Force bases and air production facilities so that they wouldn't have air defenses. So they were doing that and it was going good. They were taking a lot of casualties, but then they said, hey, let's change strategy. Stick to your guns, brother,
Yeah.
And I can't remember which one they did next. I don't want to, tell you, but it's one of the two combinations. They attacked the port facilities so that the ships couldn't come in and dock because it's an island. And then the other phase was, and I don't know which one was second or third, I forget. But the other one was just attack the boats in the water. Combination of U-boats, aerial strikes, and then once the boats started taking defense, they were using wolf packs and stuff like that. You know the story. So basically what happened is Hitler's response to British invading cities was months later,
To bombing cities.
To bombing cities. What did I say?
Invading.
Oh, no, to bombing cities. Was months later, but the English are trying to separate that into a separate thing, like you villains. But they were doing that for months and months before. So basically, I want I want to read you a little bit of Hitler's speech. I'm going to link in the description to an entire text. I couldn't find the video that I watched that I told you about early in this video. I literally tried. You tried. I couldn't find it. But basically, in it, like if we were going to context, he's talking about right now how at this point, September. So he gives the speech September 4th. The German bombers are going to fly September 7th for the first bombing of cities. And he's talking about how no British plane at this point in the war has ever crossed the channel during daylight. But the Germans have crossed the channel all the time during the daylight. They're doing this cowardly night bombing, which we don't do, but we're going to flip to it and just start. So basically he says, whenever they see a light, they drop a bomb. I did not answer for 3 months because I was of the opinion that they would ultimately stop this nonsense. Mr. Churchill perceived this as a sign of our weakness. You will surely understand that now we are giving our answers night after night, and this at an increasing rate. And should the Royal Air Force drop 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 kilograms of bombs, then we will now drop 150,000, 180,000, 230,000, 300,000, 400,000, yes, 1 million kilograms in a single night. And should they declare they will greatly increase their attacks on our cities, then we will erase their cities. We will put these nighttime pirates out of business. God help us. The hour will come that one of us will crack, and it will not be National Socialist Germany. And then he continues on, But you see, the story we've been taught is very much different. Imagine you let your cities be bombed for 3 months.
Right, with no answer.
Right. Because he wanted peace is what he wanted,
right.
with Britain. He wanted to bring them to their knees and give them peace. Because he had already tried to peacefully give them peace after France. So now during the Battle of Britain, he's trying to force them to peace.
Well, at some level, he thought of them as brothers, right?
Right. Yeah, he wrote it in Mein Kampf. He said the only future for the continent of Europe is Germany and Britain working together for the best interests of Europe, And then the British strategy always in history is you've got to keep the continent divided. There has to be two opposing powers. So once Germany has conquered France, Poland, there's no, you know what I'm saying? There's a unipower in Europe, which is against historical British strategy. But it would have worked if they would have allied, of course.
Yeah.
But they don't want to be a lesser ally, even though they were in the empire stage. The sun still didn't set on the British Empire at this point. So basically, what do you think about this? Is it convincing or no?
Yeah, it's amazing, one, that he waited that long, and two, that the people didn't turn on Hitler. 3 months, I feel like if I knew American cities were getting bombed, are we going to do something about this? I would start getting mad at my leadership. Right. And that they didn't, I think that's incredible.
Right. But he came out in speech after speech, and he told his plan during that period.
Okay, gotcha.
He told them. And I don't know. I could bring it up, but I don't know. Do you want to hear the end of the speech or what? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to read you the end of the speech, which I hadn't planned on it. Okay. That's why there was a brief edit right there. But basically, this is what he says at the end, and I found it very compelling. I read it and reread it to try to capture the idea. But he says at the end of that same speech, it is the spirit of our Volksgemeinschaft which allows us to bear all this and which makes our folks strong for all confrontations and decisions of the future. With this, the individual contributes to breaking the will of our enemies, to robbing them of their illusions, and thereby does his part in the dissemination of correct information about our folk. The more the other world sees this great folk to be a single unit, the more it will recognize the hopelessness of its undertaking. People who set forth on paths separate from one another could be broken, but 85 million men who have one will, one resolve, and who are prepared to act, no power on earth can break them. Yeah. It's powerful words. And if you really think about what he's saying, he believes this and the people believed it too. Right. And it almost worked out. In the same speech, you should read it. It's linked in. You should read it. It's amazing. Even if you hate the guy, just to understand what he was talking about. He talks about all the misinformation that's going on. Literally, he tells a story in the speech. So there's so much misinformation in the British news that they're like, ooh, Germany had a big setback in Poland. The Polish are marching on Berlin. You know what I'm saying? But he talks about this in the speech, and he's sad about it. But he's like, I think it was in Norway, and there was a brigade marching towards a city, right? But the propaganda said, oh, the Germans fled the city or whatever. You know what I mean? The Germans are strong in the city. So the brigade's just listening to the news, and they're marching towards the city. So the Germans just send the Stukas and just strafe them to death. And then he's like, why did this brigade die? You didn't have to die, but for the misinformation of Churchill, your war reporter Churchill, he says in the speech. You know what I mean?
Okay.
The speech is incredibly fascinating. I recommend you read it. So there we go, basically.
Okay.
A little tangent, but
yeah, all very interesting.
yeah.
Man, I feel like nothing I've ever been taught is real.
Yeah, it's true.
All just lies.
Yeah, it's like I even know a ton of this stuff that I tell in these different videos. But then it was only a couple months ago when I heard that speech, and I'm like, wait, what? Who did what first? You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
And then came to this. So this is a semi-new revelation within the last year to me. And so I keep learning stuff as I,
Okay.
study and study.
Yeah, I'm definitely learning. Hopefully you guys are learning something too. Man, it's just fascinating stuff. Kind of relearning history and like what reality actually is. Anyway, hope you guys are enjoying these videos as well. These What Really Happened videos. If you have any ideas for any stories about stuff, you're like, hey, what happened with this event or this time period? We're always open for ideas and different things to research. And let us know your feelings about this video. And we release new content Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. And be sure to check those out or check out our ever-growing backlog of videos. See you next time.